Greetings from the big screen. Hope everything is going well for you and you're enjoying Rooted 2014. Thanks for joining us at the round table today. I'm Chris, and this is
Walter.
And we are here with a very special guest today. We're talking football, we're talking referees, and we're talking my man Steve Wilson. Steve, thanks for being here today.
Hey, great to be with you guys today.
It's a pleasure to have you. Steve Wilson is a 30-year veteran of refereeing football at the major college and NFL levels. And Steve, in 30 seconds or less, can you give us the 30-year resume?
Well, I started at 25 years of age, youngest official in the history of major college football. Spent 18 years really in the Pac-10 conference. Was able to go all over the United States to officiate games. And in 1995, joined the NFL staff in their European League. 95 took me to their full-time staff and had an 11-year career with them, and retired in 2010.
Wow.
So it's a great time.
Yeah, sounds like it. So can you tell us what your first refereeing moment was like in the NFL?
Well, I had my first game that I had, regular season game, was in Kansas City, and we were the Chiefs were playing the Titans, and I could still remember coming down the tunnel, Walter. You know that the Arrowhead Stadium is one of the premier stadiums in the country, and my whole thought was of all of the great players that have come down that tunnel, and it was kind of a surreal moment, and I got to take in that whole crowd, red everywhere. I mean, the Chiefs are rabid fans. They filled their stadium and put 25,000 people in the parking lot, if you can believe that.
It's my understanding it's for the food, though. It has nothing to do with the football game.
Well, of course,
good barbecue.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Tailgating is part of my game. So, but it was an awesome thing, and we kicked it off. It was a day at the office, but leading up to that point, I don't think my feet hit the ground. It was kind of a dream come true, obviously. So.
I think for all sports fans, that's something that really hits home. You think about those stadiums and that setting, and it just gets your adrenaline flowing. Even if you're refereeing, that's a huge deal.
Oh yeah, anybody that tells you that there's no big deal, it is. And when we have the flyovers and a lot of the military-related things that happen prior to our kickoff, it's a real adrenaline rush. In fact, I had to force myself to bring out Kleenex or something like that, because it's embarrassing when you're wiping the tears with your flag. It doesn't look as good.
Yeah, that's
you want to
not
leave
good.
that in your pocket, and that's kind of what we had to do.
Very much so. So we'll get right to the question that everybody in the audience is wondering. I'm not a priest, but this is confession.
Sure.
Referee, I want to know Steve Wilson's biggest referee mistake.
Well, on the biggest stage of my career, really, at that point, well, I wouldn't say career, but we opened the brand new stadium in Dallas, Texas. Jerry's big dream, the $1 billion stadium. And the Giants came to town on a Sunday night game, and it was a terrific game. It was, we were probably about 3 minutes left in the first half. Tony Romo drops back to pass, looks for his tight end Witten over the center, throws the ball behind him. He reaches back, ball falls to the ground, and I come up waving the pass off. And just as I did that, I thought, did that actually hit the ground or hit him on his heel? Because that ball popped up into the Giants' secondary guy's hand, and he ran it in for a touchdown. But I had already wiped off the play. So we turned around, gave the ball to the Giants, no touchdown, and much to my happiness, they scored on the second play. So
So it all worked out.
It worked out, but it's one of those things that as officials, we always tell ourselves, don't be in a big hurry to make a mistake. Let the play kind of call itself. And
And if you were at the house that Jerry built, that means that your mistake would have been on a 90-yard wide
Yes,
television screen. Is that correct?
Well, if you didn't like the call, you got to see yourself about 100 feet tall on that big
Very
screen,
good.
and over and over and over again. So,
But what you're saying is Tony Romo actually threw an interception.
he did.
That's shocking.
It's
That's breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
It truly is, yeah. So anyway, and then of course they opened it up, and the Giants end up winning the game. So they ruined their debut anyway. So it was a tough night for the Cowboys all the way around.
Yeah. Well, so do you have a favorite moment from, being a referee, or maybe a favorite game or something?
They were all great ball games. I think when I look back on it, I think about the great coaches that I got a chance to be around. Tony Dungy was certainly one of my favorite guys to be around. Being around his team was always a joy to be with him, and so we always had some good contests with great coaches and real disciplined teams. It made our job so much easier that way. So those were my favorite kind of games that I had. It was always good to get a playoff assignment. Those were always fun to do, but when you look back, it's always the people that made it special for me.
You mentioned Tony Dungy, and I've had an opportunity to hear Steve speak on several different occasions, and I've heard you tell a story, an interaction you had with Coach Gruden, with John Gruden on a sideline one game. Why don't you fill us in on that story?
Well, Coach Gruden and I, we crossed paths many times. When he was an assistant coach, and then hired on at Oakland and at Tampa, and he was always a very spirited man. That was always my definition for coach, and he was always somewhat pleasant before the game, and then when the game progressed, because of his passion, when things went wrong for his team, it seemed to always end up in our lap. And I remember one time when I made a call, and it resulted in the other team scoring a touchdown. I was coming up the side of the field, and he comes over to me and he said, "Steve, that was your call out there, wasn't it?" And I said, "Coach, it was." He says, "Well," he says, "it's a foul if I call you a jerk, isn't it?" And I said, "Coach, it is. It's a foul if you do." He says, "It's not a foul if I just think you're a jerk, is it?" I said, "No, it's not." He says, "Well, when I think you're a jerk," and he turned around and walked away. So
very good.
So we had some good some good interactions with a lot of our coaches out there. But through it all, we had to be the 7 coolest cats out there. Everybody else had passion. I don't care if it's the popcorn seller or the cheerleaders, whoever it was. Everybody wanted somebody to win in that game, except for us. So when we came out, we had to make sure that we were played between the lines, and you don't score any touchdowns out of bounds. A lot of people don't realize that, but that's part of what we do. We got to make sure that we're doing things consistently each and every play that allow the right team to win. So.
Well, let's make a little transition. Some years back, you made the decision that God had a call on your life, and you were an ordained minister. Incidentally, an ordained minister that couldn't work at the church on Sunday because he was an NFL referee. But at some point, your call to ministry and your call to be in the circle of the NFL, they collided. How did you manage that? If you're talking to young adults out there who are thinking about how do I be on mission, whatever I'm doing in the workplace, how did you handle those two things?
Well, I was really fortunate to have the Lord in my life for most of my life. I had great influences throughout my life, both instructing and then just being a part of it. And then the call to ministry in my life was real strong, and that came at a point when I was still officiating. And but it's all about your lifestyle. It's all about what you do with it as you go about your work world, whether it's as a real estate person or someone who's going to school or whatever. You carry the Lord with you. And in my case, I felt the call to be able to as a ordained minister to be in a position where I could be. That was my full-time job, but it didn't stop when I went to be on the field. And I had the great fortune to be able to do a number of devotional times for teams and for organizations, and it was always a thrill when I'd get a call from a head coach and ask me to do their devotional time. And I know I'm the only one that's ever done that. Before that, we always had to get permission from the NFL to just go speak at a Rotary Club. Finally, they got tired of hearing from me, and they said, when Paul Tagliabue said, "Steve, our background check is pretty solid on you, so we're going to let you speak wherever you want to."
So now that you're off the field and you're full time really into your ministry, what's on your list of things to do now?
Well, I took myself off the field for a variety of reasons, and but I still stay involved in the sport. I was the chaplain of the NFL Referees Association, writing devotionals for a lot of the guys as we would meet as crews before the game, and we definitely it was surprising how that grew little by little. Not because we beat people over the head with our Bible, another fella and I, but we just made it available. It was an inspirational time, and little by little, 119 member staff of the NFL Referees Association grew to a point where all 17 crews worked with our devotions. So we were happy with that, a way that we can inspire the guys. So I'd still stay involved in that to a degree, but still want to be involved in mentoring and doing some things with some young officials. But now being on staff at a church and being invested and being able to be in town more often than I was before, I love being around the folks. But we got a lot of non-Christian friends too, and I encourage people, if you don't have a non-Christian friend, you should go find one. Life isn't all about spending time with people that are of the same faith as you. The Bible talks about it being a pretty dark world, and we need to get our light out on the darkness where people are, and inspire them to be a little bit better today than they were yesterday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good inspiration and good advice for sure. So as we kind of wrap up this conversation, I did have one question I didn't get to the very first part. We're talking about referee football stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm wondering what was the most embarrassing moment you ever had? Like, did you ever take the field like with your shoes off, or did you forget your flag? And they're like, "Hey, you haven't thrown a flag all half," and you're like, "Because I don't have it."
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I mean, what's the most embarrassing moment?
We, out of the 100 or so that I could come up with, there was a lot of things that would develop on the field. But the most embarrassing thing for me was working a wild card game in a snowstorm for the most part, still knowing that after halftime I worked the entire third quarter with my pants unzipped. That was not a happy day. I don't know how all that came together, but fortunately, it wasn't as evident on the game film. But
yeah, was that pre-HD televisions?
Well,
that probably helped.
I'm going to plead the fifth at this point.
Oh, very good. Very
good. I'm not going
good.
to talk about any games, so we don't have to go back and find them anywhere. But that was not one of your finer moments there in time. So
very good. Well, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for joining us and for inspiring and giving us some information that hopefully we all can take and apply to our life and our walk with Christ. We appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Appreciate it.
So for Walter, I'm Chris. This is the Round Table. This is the big screen, and we'll see you in a few.